after a 2-15 season, you would have thought that they would easily have the lowest win total in the NFL, and they don't. It's been bet up a little bit. I find that to be very interesting, what you brought up about a sharp group making the decision early in the offseason. We're going to come in and we're going to bet over on the Carolina Panthers. Now, that sharp group, interesting enough, was high on Carolina last year. They were making cases for the offensive play caller, and it just never worked out last year, maybe to the lack of help that Bryce Young had. He certainly has more help. They drafted a number of weapons for him. They brought in Deontay Johnson in a trade. So they're trying to help. They're trying to solidify that offensive line. I don't know. I would if my team is god awful, I'm not paying a guard $100 million. But who really wants to go to Carolina? So I do wonder how much is that going to help things a little bit. What was your takeaway when you, just based on seeing a sharp group come in over on Carolina, and if anything Skylar had to say was intriguing to you?
I thought the most telling part was when I asked him, what's the ceiling and what's the floor? And he said the floor was 5 wins. And the win total is 5.5. So he's saying they're going to be right up against it. And you look at the schedule last year, they played 8 one-score games, 8. And they lost a lot because of their offensive deficiencies. And their coaching staff was a mess. I mean, they launched Frank Reich in September. They were sort of picking up the pieces from that point forward. But if they come in full throttle with a new coaching staff that clearly supports the quarterback, you can do some things here in a very weak division. This division blows, and the Saints
Awful.
miss me with the Derek Carr. I don't bet quarterbacks that wear wedding rings. I never have. Derek Carr stinks. He's the president of the ring-wearing quarterback class that I just don't bet. Tampa Bay, I mean, does anybody in that division scare you? No. So
No.
you have a couple things working out. New regime, quarterback should be better, drafted some weapons in a weak division. I mean, this is not like they're in the AFC West or the NFC East where you have perennial Super Bowl contenders here. This is a crapshoot. And if you want to get crazy with Carolina, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if you want to follow the money, if you will, this group that Adam Chernoff has been with for a while now, they bet over 4.5 to 5.5. If you play it forward and look at Carolina to win the division, you're talking about a number that's pretty steep, man. I mean, it's not impossible that they can win this NFC North or NFC South, excuse me. Like 14-1. The range is there. They're as high as 14-1, as low as 10-1. But even make the playoffs. BetMGM giving you 750. So 100 makes 750. Take back 850. If they exceed in several categories and turn some of those one-score losses into one-score wins, they can be a playoff team. Jacksonville 2 years ago was 8-1 to win the division. Look what Jacksonville did. In these bad divisions, I've come to expect the unexpected.
That's not insane. And we're not saying that we love the Carolina Panthers. We're just saying that, look, 7 teams have to get in, okay? And once you get to that 6, 7, 8 range, there are some bad teams. Once you get past, let's say the Lions win the division, Eagles win the division. Okay, Niners, Lions, Eagles, those are your top 3. And now we're getting into, look, I'm selling the Cowboys hard this year. A couple injuries go sideways, couple things go sideways. Micah Parsons were to go down. How different is that team? And they lose their defensive coordinator last year. I'm not buying into Dak. I think they're going to be chasing in a lot of games. Packers, sure, okay. And then a team from this division. So once you get down there, we're talking Rams, Bears, Seahawks. Those are the teams that are going to be on the border, expected to be on the border to make the playoffs. So if you have that one year where everything goes right, maybe they could possibly sneak in. Now, you are relying on a lot of rookies. You're relying on a big jump. But look at what Canales did in this division for Baker Mayfield. Okay, now Canales leaves. Are we to expect that Baker Mayfield is going to repeat last year's performance as the receiving group gets older and older down in Tampa? I would bet against that one. I'm not interested in backing anything Tampa now that Canales is out of the picture.
Division leader last year, Tampa Bay 9-8. New Orleans 9-8 as well, but Tampa had the tiebreaker. Atlanta 7-10 because Arthur Smith is a freaking moron. Can we talk about Atlanta for a second last year? I'm not really over it. I had over 8 wins. Oh my God, Atlanta. How many times last year did they have first and goal at the 1 and he's got the quarterback in the shotgun at the 5? Or he decides, you know what I'm going to do here? I've got Bijan Robinson, but I'm going to run a tight end reverse. Like they lost so many games because that coach sucked. I'm over it. I just wanted to get that out there. And then Carolina last year, 2-15. So there's just nothing in this division that scares me. You look at the point differential, though, last year, Tampa Bay plus 23, New Orleans plus 75, Atlanta minus 52, Carolina Panthers point differential last year, minus 180. Minus 180. That's about as bad as it gets, Joe. They only scored 236 points that last year, and that's why they put so much capital into an offensive coaching staff and into these offensive players that you pointed out in the draft. We saw a really sharp betting group come in and fire a lot of money on the over 4.5 wins. Now that number has moved up a whole win. So the win total on Carolina is 5.5. And it's funny, Skylar, we ask all these writers and beat guys, what do you do with the win total? And most of them say over. So I'm not going to ask you over or under 5.5, but I guess the question that I want to shape is, what is the ceiling and what is the floor in terms of a win number?
That's a great question. I think it's kind of in that ballpark of probably, 5 to 7. I would say 5 is the floor because if you look at the schedule, there's a kind of a soft spot, if you will, between like weeks 5 and week 11 going into their bye week before they go overseas to play before they go overseas to play New York. And I think if they can kind of get on a little bit of a roll there, that could set them up to maybe even be in the mix in the NFC South. I mean, the NFC South is arguably the weakest division in the entire league. And if they can hang around long enough, it's a young team. It's got some confidence rolling. That's one of the most dangerous things in the NFL, or really in any sport, is a young, confident team that's starting to gain more confidence in themselves. So I think they can get, if they can just kind of keep their head above water throughout the month of October, I think they could easily pass that 5-win mark. But if everything goes bad and it's the worst case scenario, I still see them getting to that 5-win mark. This team's just so much more improved at key spots in the offensive line, at receiver. This is just, it's not a 2, 3, or 4 win team. They're going to find ways to beat some teams and get to at least 5.
Bryce Young's touchdown number for 2024 is only 18.5. And what made Bryce really good at Alabama was the play action game. So they're going to utilize this running attack, which was also discussed. You set up the pass by establishing the run, and you're going to have bigger shots down the field to not only 1, but 2 new receivers with Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh and Xavier Legette, the rookie who they took in the first round. And now you got Jatavian Sanders, kid out of Texas, monster, 6'4", 260, Joe. He's got jump ball guys now that can go up and grab these, passes into the end zone. So I look at that number 18.5, and I think it's almost a slap in the face to Bryce Young. And that's probably, we've talked about this team for a half hour now. I think Bryce Young over 18.5 passing touchdowns is my favorite bet.
Okay, so 18.5 puts him, last year, Justin Herbert had 20, Kirk Cousins had 18. So that would be 19th in the NFL just a season ago.
Hey, Cousins got hurt, and Herbert had a broken hand. So, I mean, Cousins blew his Achilles out.
Well, yeah, Cousins played in only 8 games, and he got to 18. Very different offense, very different situation.
Not a big number, man. It's not a big number.
It's not. And then Bryce Young, he missed he missed 1 game? Yeah, he played in 16 games, 28-77. I'm looking at the yardage. I know they're going to run the football, but as bad as things were last year, with no supporting cast, he threw for almost 2,900 yards. And now the number's at 3,200. So if I'm going over, I'll go over on the yardage. We're asking him, and I know injuries always come into play here, but you're asking him to bump up 300 yards over the course of an entire season in his second year of development, a much better offensive coach, and more weapons. As long as he stays healthy, he should be able to get to over 300 more yards. I don't know if that's enough of a jump, but yeah, I would look at the yardage. I trust that one. And by the way, he got a bad haircut. I don't know what's going on. Dude, there have been some things going off the course for Scotty that have not been great. Golf has been terrific, but yeah, a lot of people making fun of his haircut over the last couple of days. So that's our way of buying time, so we don't have to talk about the Carolina Panthers, but let's go back to the Carolina
You guys
Panthers
are a
quickly.
Panthers show. That's what I've heard over the past hour. You guys are like in on the Panthers. Your
More
darling
so
team
than
2024.
More
More
so
so
than
than I
out.
thought
Yeah,
I was going to be on Wednesday when we started planning this. Yeah.
Or
Are you-
counterpoint, Paul, maybe we're just good at our jobs.
Or it's great producing to be like, hey, here's an hour to talk about the Panthers so you can buy in.
True.
Or all the above.
Yeah, that's the reason. Do you have a Panthers bet? Is there a win total, a prop that you like?
I'm intrigued on the Bryce number. That's low. It's very low. And
Yards
like
or
the track
yards
record
or
for
touchdowns?
Canales, I think more touchdowns. I want to go back and look and see like kind of what they did in the red zone with Baker last year with Canales, but he had 28. But kind of look a little bit more at what specifically they did in the red zone. But yeah, it's just such a low number. You look at some of the guys that got there for the touchdowns, and Geno and Sam Howell. I mean, they're well above that. Justin Fields had 16. I mean, Gardner Minshew had 15. Like they're almost pretty much there. So yeah, I think if I had to choose one bet, that would be it. Although playoff team, no, but ATS. Well, okay, I can't get there on them as a playoff team, but as a dog, yeah, I'll be looking at the Panthers.